If you're a sports fan, make sure you go check out SportsCastr for all of your sports news. Whether you are a Patriots fan or not, this is the perfect way to meet all of your sports needs and is a platform I personally use myself in case any of you guys want to catch me live talking about training camp recaps, etc. I'll leave a link in the description below. What is up, Pats Nation? It's Patriots Global back here with another video, and I'm yet again bringing back my series that I started last preseason with the winners and the losers. You guys love this series, and I most recently did it with minicamp, and you guys loved it, so I thought I would do one for week 1, all right? The 8 days, the week 1 of Patriots training camp. So my first winner is going to be Jakobi Meyers, wide receiver, and it just has to be. This guy has just been insane. He has been one of the biggest standouts, if not the biggest standout, through the Patriots 8 days of training camp. I made an entire video praising him for this if you guys want to know more details about this, so I'm going to say it a lot more in a nutshell. But he has been such a sure-handed wide receiver. From what reports are saying, he is such a sticky-handed receiver, catching everything thrown his way. He's connected really well with all of the quarterbacks, but especially Tom Brady. The connection that they have made in just a short amount of time has been extremely special. And the thing about Jakobi Meyers is that he isn't a guy such as, let's say, Maurice Harris, who has been really good at just catching everything thrown his way, doing his job. I mean, Jakobi Meyers has been making the play of the day. And he's done that about 3 or 4 times. And there's been one time where it's been said that he has made the play of training camp. Okay, we're not just talking about wide receivers. We're not just talking about offense. We're talking about every single player in training camp. And he made the best play out of the 8 days. I mean, for him to be in double coverage by Patrick Chung and Keon Cross, and for him to go up in the air, bobble the pass with one hand, and then get it down and bring it in for the touchdown, it's just insane. No player has caught more passes from Tom Brady than Jakobi Meyers, and he finished with 4 receptions during team drills, and 3 of which came from 11-on-11s during one day. Overall, extremely high praise for Jakobi Meyers. But moving on to my loser. All right, my first loser is going to be cornerback Juwan Williams. Now, Williams at times started to pick it up, but especially in the beginning of training camp, and this is something we've heard from minicamp also, is that he's struggling. All right, he's having a hard time, he's getting beat, and he's just having an issue keeping up with all these other receivers, especially the faster receivers such as like Philip Dorsett. The best thing about Juwan Williams was that he's a cornerback that was extremely praised for his ability to mirror wide receivers. Okay, he's very good at press type of defense and is really good at being in man coverage and just being straight up on the heel of the offensive player. And really, that is nothing that we have seen from him in training camp. Again, there's days that he picked it back up, but there were days that he also lost it. He's just been extremely inconsistent, and from a second round cornerback, in general, just a second round pick, you expect so much more. Now, it is just week 1 of training camp. He could really go off and play extremely well in preseason. We're just going to have to wait, but we are talking about training camp, and he was definitely a loser for me. My next winner is actually going to be 4th round pick, quarterback Jarrett Stidham, and I'm very happy to actually be able to put him on this list. In the beginning of training camp, Jarrett Stidham was having issues. He wasn't exactly performing up to par, and a lot of people started to jump to conclusions. A lot of people started getting worried, but in the end, I'm sure it was just the beginning of training camp. He was scared, he was nervous, but by the end of training camp, he seriously adapted to the exact opposite way that he was in the beginning of training camp. He just looks extremely comfortable out there. His accuracy is certainly standing out, and I'm really excited to see how that's going to translate into the preseason. He's without a doubt 100% way better than Danny Etling was around this time. And the progression that a 4th round quarterback has made up to this point really has been outstanding. And maybe it isn't necessarily where a lot of people would like him, but at the same time, he is a 4th round pick. He's 3rd on the depth chart, and he has a lot of time to continue to learn and develop. On Friday, he completed 8 of his 11 attempts during team workouts, and he actually took that second string offensive quarterback position away from Brian Hoyer. Now, I don't think that's going to stand, But it's very interesting that he actually had taken that away from Brian Hoyer. And by this time next year, I wouldn't be surprised if Jared Stidham does take that spot away from Brian Hoyer. Now, my next loser is going to have to be tight end Matt LaCosse. And if you are following these training camp recaps, which if you're not, go check out my SportsCastr page. There will be a link in the description below where I've covered every single 8-day recap of Patriots training camp. But he's been struggling, okay? And when you're hearing how he's performing in OTAs and minicamp, a lot of people expected him to be a lot better. And especially towards the end of training camp, he started to take a dive down. He is still considered the second tight end on the Patriots depth chart. I mean, the Patriots don't really have anybody else that's going to be above that. Lance Kendricks is injured. But he finished the day without a single reception. And there was a point where he actually had a extremely bad, reports were saying that it was a very, very bad false start during a 2-minute drill. And because of it, he had to run a lap. There's been times where Matt LaCosse has been pretty good, but then there's times where he's also proven that he needs a lot of work. And if this is what the Patriots are going into with the regular season, then there is some reason to be worried. Overall, the last couple days of training camp, he really started to worry me. And LaCosse is seriously going to have to work on his consistency. My next winner is going to be strong safety Terrence Brooks. And this is a guy that is going to be a roster lock, okay? His contract says it. This is something that I've said since the Patriots have signed him, that he's going to be a roster lock, okay? But his main purpose coming into, the season, ever since signing with the Pats, was going to be his ability to play on special teams. That's what he was best for, but he's showing that the Patriots are going to be also playing him a good amount on defense. He hasn't allowed a single reception thrown his way when 3 balls came in his direction on 11-on-11 drills. And he was also tied with, of course, J.C. Jackson with 2 pass breakups. The biggest thing here is that Terrence Brooks has been seeing his time with the team with the first team. He's taking these reps with the first team. He isn't doing it with the scout team. He's not doing it with second or the third team. He's been playing with first team, and he's continuing to show his ability. And the big thing with him is it kind of mirrors me back to a Duron Harmon type of guy. He's really good at going up there and batting these passes down, okay? You're not necessarily going to see him making 110 interceptions, but the biggest thing with him is that he's going to bat the ball down, and because of the amount of batted passes that he's made, a lot of these other Patriots defenders are getting interceptions, okay? Because they're getting these INTs off of the pass deflections that Terrence Brooks is causing. He's been pretty locked down with his time with the Patriots. His size stands out, and he's 100% going to be more than just a special teamer, but because he brings the special teams ability and this defensive ability, he's going to be 100% a lock. Now, my next loser is going to be Isaiah Wynn, and this isn't like the other players where he's necessarily done anything wrong, but this is because of his inability to really be playing with the team, okay? We heard that going into training camp, Isaiah Wynn was going to be ready, and to a lot of people, including me, this was a very good thing, okay? Patriots really need to protect Tom Brady. He's an aging quarterback, and left tackle is a very important spot, okay? That's Tom Brady's blind side. But in the beginning of training camp, Isaiah Wynn was sitting out. And we already said Bill Belichick is going to ease him in, okay? He's not just going to throw him in there. But when you're 8 days into training camp and he still is not ready to go, you start to get worried, especially when you start hearing reports that Isaiah Wynn might not be ready to go week 1. Okay, and obviously the Patriots are visibly concerned with how Isaiah Wynn is when the rumors came out that they were interested in trading for all-pro left tackle Trent Williams. Now, Wynn is definitely working his way back to the team. He is making progress pretty much by now, day by day. So there is still a lot of question on will he be ready week 1. I'm still hearing that he might not be. But he is taking steps in the right direction. But ultimately, he is a loser here because he was supposed to be ready for the start of training camp, and we're over 8 days into it, and he still isn't. Now, my next winner is going to be running back Sony Michel. And the reason that he's on here is not because of his ability to produce in the run game. It's actually the opposite. It's his ability that he's producing and the position that he's being put in the passing game. You guys have heard me say several times about Sony Michel is that lately he's been more of a one-dimensional running back, okay? Even in college, he wasn't a running back that really produced in the passing game. And even last season, he didn't really produce in the passing game at all. And because of that, when Sony Michel was on the field, defenses knew that it wasn't really going to be a passing play. It was going to be a run play with Sony Michel. Ever since Sony Michel's his surgery that he got this offseason, it's been reported that he's looking really healthy, really recovered, and really refreshed. He's moving really well, and they are really using him in the passing game. They're putting him out wide to the left. They tried him at the right. They're just really putting him everywhere in this passing situation. And it's going to make both him and the Patriots offense so much more dangerous because defenses are not going to know what's going to happen, okay? Sony Michel as a running back is already lethal. If he can get, 10, 15 yards down the field because of a pass and then work his way with his running back ability, he's going to be extremely dangerous. On Friday, he caught all 3 passes from Tom Brady on 11-on-11 work, and he finished the day with a team high of 5 receptions during team competitive drills. Ultimately, that's exactly what you want to hear from Sony Michel. Now, my next loser here is going to be wide receiver Braxton Berrios, and I hate having to put him on this list, but ultimately, it's a winners and losers list, and he's been a pretty big loser in training camp. Now, he started training camp pretty well. He definitely did not live up to the hype that he was producing in minicamp. But really his biggest issue is coming down to consistency. All right, there's days and there's plays where he's making diving catches, where he's being a reliable target, but then he's having sloppy days. He's having days where he cannot get open, where these defenders, no matter who the defender is just constantly mirroring over him. I mean, he literally caught just 3 of the 8 passes that were thrown his way in team competitive drills. And he also dropped a pass that Jarrett Stidham threw his way. It's just not going well for Braxton Berrios. And when you have guys like Jacoby Myers, who was considered his competitive threat, then you can tell it's just not looking great for Braxton Berrios. Berrios is going to have to show up huge. And I'm talking Julian Edelman type huge in the preseason if he wants to make the roster, because what he's showing right now, he's not going to make the team. He's going to have a kickoff return for touchdown, punt return for touchdown, or just literally become Super Bowl MVP Julian Edelman type in these preseason games if he wants to make the roster. Now, my next winner is someone I literally had to include. I could not do my guy wrong, and that is safety Obi Melifonwu. All right, Obi Melifonwu and Terrence Brooks have been a really good pair together, and Obi has had the most interceptions out of any other Patriots defender. I believe he's had about 3 or 4 of them. In all, Obi's just had a really good camp. He's made interceptions on his own. He's worked with other Patriots defenders, for example, Terrence Brooks, and he's gotten interceptions off of pass deflections. He's been really good in coverage, and he's just showing that he has the ability to make plays off balls. He's living up to the second-round hype from when he was drafted by the Oakland Raiders. My biggest thing for Obi Melifonwu is staying healthy. If Obi is able to stay healthy, then I don't see how the Patriots are going to be able to just move on from him. Now, with that being said, he's going to have to continue to show up in the preseason games. Now, if he's having a very rough preseason games, he's not going to make the roster. But if he continues to show what he's been doing in training camp in preseason and he stays healthy, then I'm going to say he makes this roster. And I'm actually going to end this video with one more winner, and that is going to be someone you're probably not expecting, a name you're probably not going to know, but that's cornerback D'Angelo Ross. On Thursday, he won 2 of his 3 one-on-one matchups with 2 pass breakups over veteran receiver Maurice Harris, okay? And that's very big, as Maurice Harris has been one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver that the Patriots have had this entire offseason in training camp, OTAs, and minicamp, and it's been hard to defend him. And yet, D'Angelo Ross has been doing just that. We first heard about him on Wednesday during one-on-one drills between cornerbacks and wide receivers. He won all 3 of his matchups against Dontrell Inman, Braxton Berrios, and Gunner, with pass breakups over later 2 slot receivers. There was also one point where he was tied with another defender. It might have been J.C. Jackson with the most pass breakups. Veteran cornerback Jason McCourty was also asked about him, and he said that he's been on top of everything. He sits next to him in meetings and he writes down everything the coach is saying. You can just tell that he's putting in a lot of work. Very smart player, wants to be here and wants to do his best. Downside to him, though, is that he's 5'9", 190 pounds, a very small guy. I remember going to training camp and seeing him on the field and just wondering, who the heck is this guy? I mean, this dude is so small and petite. I looked at the roster, and it was D'Angelo Ross, a cornerback. And of course, being that small in the NFL is going to be extremely hard to guard, especially bigger wide receivers, especially in the league today that has a lot of tall receivers. But something that I think Bill Belichick will also like about him is that in his 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.37. Ultimately, getting him on the actual 53-man roster is going to be extremely hard when you have Juwan Williams, Jonathan Jones, Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, just so many guys already that I don't see how the Patriots are going to get him there. I could see them trying everything they possibly can to squeeze him onto the practice squad, but with how he's performing, especially if he performs extremely well in preseason, then another team is going to grab him. But that is it for today's video. Those are my winners and losers from training camp. Of course, there are a lot more guys that I'm sure you guys are going to comment, and I'm probably not even going to argue about it because there have been a lot of winners and there have been a lot of losers, but I think these are going to be my top guys. Who are your winners and losers? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you guys just subscribed it. If you're not subscribed yet, please hit the like button on this video. It seriously helps me and the channel out a whole lot. Make sure you guys share this video with everybody who knows from the Patriots Global family. And other than that, I will catch you guys in another video.